Okay, it is 2 o'clock. A quorum of the board is present, and the meeting will convene. What is number 2 on the agenda?
Number 2 was the presentation we already did earlier.
Oh, thank you. I was like, I don't know what this is. Number 3, public comment. Do we have any?
No one that I'm aware of.
Okay. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Not at this time. I would like to point out on the table is the ad the Recreation Department put in, their recreation guide for the Board of Elections, asking people to serve as poll workers. And there were questions about what the green card is in terms of inactivating voters. So I have copies for you on the table.
Okay. Thank you. Approval of the minutes, and I know that
Can you give us a few seconds? We can read the
we
changes.
received changes last evening, yesterday afternoon. You'd like a few minutes?
Yes, please.
All righty.
I saw them. Well, I'll wait.
Does everybody have the?
Are there any other than the ones I submitted?
I don't believe so. And you see them in blue.
I read them.
Okay. I'd like to point out that on page 14 there is a typo that should be corrected, where there's a repetition of the words "and that."
Oh, yes.
At the bottom of the page, Mary?
Yes,
The second
at
to
the
last line.
Bottom of the page.
Yes.
It's in the highlighted blue area where it had been changed language.
Page 14.
Page
right?
14 at the bottom. See, and
Yeah.
that, and that.
You said that.
Next to the last line.
Voter registration, second paragraph, 5th line.
Their minutes are different because it doesn't have the spaces.
Okay.
Oh, they don't have the version that we have?
They do, but it's different because it's you guys have the edits showing. Theirs are in a different view, and there's less spacing.
Okay.
So it's,
Okay.
They may have different pages
This
or off.
had not taken place at the time of our board meeting, so can we change it to read this way?
Which had not
These
taken place?
changes all came from
I
Mr.
know.
Naaman.
I mean
Which page is
this is page 3.
three?
The top of the pointed by.
Actually, that had taken place before the board meeting in April. We were both appointed and confirmed at that time. So it was actually not pending the governor's approval. That's why I changed it.
Yeah, the confirmation took place the day before our board meeting, I believe, wasn't it, on that Monday?
They were confirmed by the state Senate. What we have not received is the governor's final sign-off. That has still not been received, but the way it's worded, confirmed by the state Senate, that in fact was done prior to
Was the
the
case.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the governor.
We still do not have letters from the governor.
Well, but we were nominated by the governor. Maybe the word appointed should be nominated instead of
Yeah,
appointed.
that was my only
Okay.
question, was the way the wording was.
Okay.
You
and
have
not-
to get that
So that's on page 3, the second line. Instead of saying appointed, it should say nominated.
nominated. Okay.
No, it's an appointment.
Is it that?
Well,
yeah,
to
Is
David's,
it?
You're
Senate
nominated
approved
by
it.
the party committees
You
to
think
the governor
the governor
for
makes an appointment and then
confirmed.
Okay.
confirmed by
I believe Mary
the
Ann's right.
Senate.
Okay, never mind. I had it right the first time and wrong
Appointed,
today.
They're appointed, right?
Okay, so we
That one.
stick with appointed.
Do we have to get that governor approval because the Senate already approved it?
The governor has to send a
the
letter.
governor has to send a letter to us letting us know who is officially appointed before we can swear you in.
My understanding is that's on the way.
Okay, have we
governor was
had
visiting.
time to, are you still reviewing?
No, fine, I move we accept the minute with all this correction.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting the minutes as edited, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So done. Margaret, the election director report, please.
Okay. Significant meetings. All of the meetings I attended were related to the procurement or implementation of the new voting system, and they will be covered later in the document. So that's it for the meetings. Personnel. The board has one temporary serving in voting services. This person is covering for a staff person who's on family leave. Budget, Margie.
Okay, the latest spreadsheet was sent to you in your packet. And what I can tell you is that we are tracking very well. I have been able to, we have received the third quarter billing as well as the first installment of the billing for the state new voting system, and we have been able to pay those two invoices out of our budget without requiring a supplemental. And it's looking like the build out for the facility to accommodate the new voting system will also be able to be handled without a supplemental. Additional billings from the state for the new voting system, we may need to move forward. But we have been very conscientious of in spending this year. As you all know, we knew that we were going to have the build out. We knew that they did not give us that money at the time. And so we've been very careful in our spending, and we should be able to take care of everything within the budget.
So you're saying that's going to come out of the 15 budget?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the
much
estimate
For the
the build out?
the build out's a little over 300,000.
300,000. We spent 200,000 so far, right?
I'm sorry.
It's $200,000 we already spent it. I mean, gave them 200,000.
We haven't spent any money on the build out.
Isn't that that column said FY 15 years to date $200,000? What is that?
What line are you looking at, Nahid?
60066.
That's SBE program management.
Okay.
So where is the build out in this?
It's not on there.
There has been no money spent.
Right.
That will come out of building construction when it's spent, 60414.
I have a question. In the back, we have around $2 million surplus. Are we going to spend it within the month?
Yes, this was run on May 5th.
Yes.
It's updated every month. So when you see the one in June, you'll see the encumbrances will be shown for the payments for the state, as well as an encumbrance for the build out will be showing on the next spreadsheet. But they're not showing on this one because that was all done after that.
Surplus like the last 2 years, right?
I'm sorry?
We would not have extra money for
I don't
the last 2
anticipate
years.
having any extra money this year at all.
So the 300,000 is for the build out. Where's the one? Is it 1.9 million that remains? That at the moment there's a surplus.
State.
Well, there's state bills that will still come in, and we haven't seen, if you all will recall, a lot of but the costs that are associated with the county, like the print shop, all of the print shop requests, all of that stuff hasn't come in yet. I mean, this will continue to be updated through August of 2015 related to FY15 expenses.
That's true. I certainly recall that we're always getting, we're still dealing with the past
Yes.
budget as things trickle in.
Right.
It does seem like a big number, though, that's still left.
Well, I think that you'll see that come down next month when you see it next month.
Well, come down to where? Because obviously, when you have 1.9 million left, there's a long way to come down. And given that we know that we have a lot of things that need resources, I would hate for us to assume it's going to come down and then be left with a huge surplus that could have been used on something that the board wants to do.
Well, I understand that. And I honestly am not prepared to address that at this meeting. I was not anticipating that. I'll be happy to be prepared to address that at the June meeting in terms of where we're at and what we can do. I'm not anticipating much of a surplus at all. Margaret, do you have any information other than that?
We have substantial bills from the state board that are still out. And that once those bills come in, and as Margie said, the
What line item is that, Margaret? Is that?
that would be those items that are in yellow. That would be SBE program management. That would be computer equipment repairs. That would be other equipment rentals related to MD voters. That would
But
be
you have
other
money there, Margaret, like that 61932, we had 400,000 plus approved, we spent only 177,000.
But that money will be encumbered so that we can address the state bills that we have not received.
Right, but if it
And
goes
so-
according, if it
so-
goes according to the budget, that adds up to $1 million. Those four places that you just said.
But we haven't received the final bill for this fiscal year for the new voting equipment is not in this budget at all. And any monies that we have will have to come out of this budget. The
If-
costs for the new voting system
If,
will.
if you'll recall, the state has told us to prepare for the FY15 payments for the new voting system to the amount of $500 and some thousand.
That's in addition to what's on this budget?
Yeah, that was not funded in the budget, so that would
Okay.
have to come out of this
Okay.
budget. The first bill that we received was $125,000, so we're still looking at another $375,000 plus related just to the new voting
The
system. and that-
125,000 is on here somewhere?
No, as I said a few minutes ago, the bills that have been paid since May 5th do not show on this sheet.
And
They'll
that one,
show
and that one
next
is
month.
since May 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you addressed at all with the state the possibility of getting more scanners for our bigger precincts, more than one scanner?
Oh, repeatedly.
And the answer is repeatedly what?
I have, with regards to requesting more DS200 scanners for the polling places. Yes, I have.
What's the response? How much are they? If we have any extra money, can we encumber it to buy scanners?
Exactly.
First of all, it's a lease. It's a lease that comes through the state board, and the answer is no, because the state legislature did not authorize the state board to lease more equipment than what has already been allocated. So at this time, the answer is no.
Are we not allowed to buy our own?
We are not.
You-
Yes, we could.
Prohibitive.
We could go through the procurement process, but again, it's a lease. We're not going to purchase
But
anything.
we could go through the procurement process to lease
Only
40 of them or something.
Not at this point in the fiscal year. We could not use FY15 funds to do that. Procurement has closed for the fiscal year.
It just seems like when you add up everything that we've been talking about, we're still at $1.5 million.
Lots of money, yeah.
And that leaves more than $500,000 of surplus when we have huge needs, but somehow are unable to spend it. At the same time that we're going to the council and saying, please, 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 we need more.
What I will say as a reminder is, as we approach the end of any fiscal year, any monies that are outstanding for the state certainly are all encumbered, and so that they are available as needs arise in the coming fiscal year. It is too early, although it is late in the fiscal year, it is still too early for staff to make a decision on how much that encumbrance needs to be. That decision would be made in early to mid-June, so that the encumbrance would be there and the funds would be available for any expenses that had not been received that were anticipated.
Let me go about this a different way. could we look up how much it would cost to lease the scanners and get ready to do that if we have the money to do it, and if not, ask the council. I think most of us agree there's no question we're going to need them, and the state probably isn't going to provide them. Can we get ready to do whatever it takes to get them, so we're not caught at the end without, either we can encumber, we can do it with any money that might be left, or immediately ask the county council for more before the next election?
What I think I'm hearing is we can't use 15 money to do what you're talking about, because we can't go through a procurement process to get the money encumbered, etc. I think you know what the situation is with 16 and what we've been going through, and where we are thrilled that we got a part of the money back that made it into the 16 budget. We are still hoping, Naheed and David and I, to meet with the Ike Leggett's person, Mr. Short.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Chuck Short.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. I was drawing a blank on his name.
Is this
To
gonna
talk
come up?
about the supplemental. The money is unbelievably tight. We can get into a little discussion later on about this Supreme Court case today that is going to impact the county. I just think we're, going off on a tangent.
It just seems
to
like we
think
ought to be
about-
ready to do it, and then if in fact there's some way we can do it.
You're talking
for the
about
next
huge
election.
amounts of money. I mean, it would be a tremendous amount of money. What I would like to ask Margie is, could you go through, where we have been going through with the 16 budget and prioritizing and putting dates as to when we need money to do different things, in preparation for anything that would be left and that we could move forward with in those last 3 weeks, say, of the month, to do, maybe related to outreach costs. For example, could we prepay postage? You know how we want to send out a mailing to every registered voter on the new system and stuff?
That I don't think we can do, but I'll certainly put in a call. I mean, that's handled through the county print shop. It's not something where we're mailing this from the post office, where we would go buy a meter that had X number of dollars of postage.
We can't do our own.
No,
No.
we utilize county postage indices.
Is that a requirement?
Is that a requirement?
Right.
I don't know if that's a requirement.
Well, let's look into that, because that, as I recall, that was a chunk of about $85,000 for a mailing, and that would be something that we could do. David?
Just another thought about where Jackie was going. Well, it may be too late for us to go through the procurement process. Clearly the state is going to be billing us for things that aren't going to happen until next year. They're billing us for the new equipment. Is it possible that by working with the state we can tell them that we have extra money to spend for more scanners? Because if they haven't made a decision yet about our scanners, I don't know how that decision is made. I don't, and I don't pretend to be knowing what all their procurement rules are. But it sounds like, on the one hand, we cannot go through this process for ourselves to buy it, but on the other hand, we are doing exactly that for the state. We're giving them money in order to do something next year. So.
However we get them, it just seems
exactly.
move in that direction.
Exactly. No, I'm agreeing with you completely. I'm just trying to see if there's another avenue to get there, because it just seems like if the estimates are correct, there's still going to be a significant chunk of money that's unspent, and again, to the tune of $500,000. And I don't know how many scanners that buys or leases or whatever, but it's more than if we, it certainly would be a shame to turn that money back because the bill from the state comes and this bill is much less, and it doesn't include the scanners, and then next year we're back fighting for money for scanners again.
Well, I certainly agree. I mean, I've said many times at this table, having too much money in my way of budgeting is as bad as overspending, especially in the process that we have to go through. I mean, we want to show that we really are coming up with solid numbers, and we're playing it close to the vest. What are the communications modems, SVE, at $24,870, and we've only spent $269?
Right, that's something that you may recall from previous discussions. That amount of money was put in that line item in error, and I will take part responsibility for that. That specific line item at $269 is specifically the monthly modem cost for the MD voters connection to the State Board of Elections. And the spending on that is correct. The $24,870 was something that was asked for polling places, anticipating the need for the presidential, for the gubernatorial general, for needing to drop more lines into polling places that was not realized.
So we're never going to spend that.
That is correct.
So right away, there's, $24,500 that is going to be there, presumably.
Which line is it?
That's
26, 63, 626.
626.
Yellow.
It's highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
And the one right under other communications.
Right underneath it.
57.
Phone lines.
And in the case of 63626, the surplus for that line item will certainly help offset the deficit in 63600.
Which is
You're still about
I say, yeah.
46,000 over. Because that deficit is about 35,000. 34,000.
Well, frankly, I would suggest that if possible, let's not wait till the next board meeting. Let's try and, have a report on this in the interim if we can.
The issue that I run into is that the reports are not updated so that I have a clear understanding of where we are at until after the first of the month. I can certainly run the reports. We've got a meeting on June 2nd. I would not be able to have anything ready for that executive function meeting. It is conceivable that I could have something ready to send everybody an email just prior to Mayo. But having it much sooner than that is just not possible because it's going to take me some time to go through it and highlight some things and make recommendations to the board. And I wouldn't want to do that in a haphazard, rushing fashion. But,
Okay.
hopefully.
Well, if need be, we could always convene a meeting at Mayo for purposes of if we had to make a budget decision or.
Can we do that?
I mean,
Can we do
that's
that, Kevin?
Kevin,
It
can
won't-
we do that? Or no?
I won't be board chair, so it's not
hold
mine to
on.
convene.
We'd
But
have
see if we
to,
can do
somehow
that.
we'd have to post
We'll have to
notice.
post, but we can do it. If we need to, we can logistically do it and comply with the law.
I
We'd
mean,
have to post, we'd have to have it so that you could hear it here via conference call. So it'd be
I
open to
see.
the public.
If somebody wanted to come in,
If
yeah.
someone wanted to, yes.
the meeting, the biennial conference is the 9th through the 11th. The June board meeting is the 15th. If I had information out to you on the 5th, then you could look through it and we could have it as a discussion at the June 15th meeting.
Does that leave enough time to spend the money?
Yeah, to spend it. That's what I'm worried, because it has to be spent by the 30th, right?
Any substantial, significant Well, anything that has to go through the Office of Procurement, it's too late at this point.
I understand.
So the likelihood that you're going to be able to do anything.
Look,
Well, take a look at those items if you would for me.
I will
And,
do that and
Just
and
see
get
if
back to
there's,
you.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
thank
Alright.
you.
Thank you. So anyhow, we hate to see the money goes,
Well, I know.
not to spend.
And I know it's a very difficult procedure, and we toy with this, struggle with this is
And
the word I
I
mean,
truly don't believe
every year because we get bills so late in the game from the state.
and for that reason we
And from the
always
county.
do the encumbrance and
And from the
state.
county?
We don't from the county we don't know what they're charging us back sometimes until August, and so I can't drain the coffers because they have to be there for those late chargebacks.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that we're going to have a lot that would be turned back to the county, but I will get you some better information the beginning of June for discussion.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
No,
Voter
going forward.
registration.
Voter monthly statistics were posted at the beginning of the month. The state board submitted another 5,000 names from the Electronic Registration Information Center called ERIC. ERIC is the nonprofit organization the state of Maryland entered into a legal agreement and approved by the legislature that provides data matching services to improve the quality of the voter data by identification of out-of-date or inaccurate information about voters. Additionally, the staff continues to process the changes of address and updating addresses from the sample ballots and other information provided to us by the U.S. Postal Service. And of course, as always, the staff is processing all voter registration from public agencies and mail.
The ERIC and 5,000 names are to be taken off? Or
It could be
could be any of the stuff?
It could be changes of address. It could be moved out of state.
Dead people, is there dead people among them?
That do we do?
Yes,
is
it
it
is.
some death?
Other times
We,
they've just.
what we will do with the ERIC match is they identify to the Social Security death register. We do what we believe is a match, and then we're required by MD voters to send a letter to confirm that that person is in fact deceased.
How about if you don't get a response back?
They get canceled.
They get
They're given
canceled.
2 weeks and then they're canceled.
Oh, 2 weeks.
So this
Okay.
is 5,000 names, though, that it will individually have to be checked in some fashion.
Right. That's
How
what we-
does that number compare with other lists that we've received from Eric? It seems high to me.
Yeah, all of the states had elections in November, and so we are all doing list maintenance efforts across the nation. So what's happening as you know, Sacramento or Virginia or Kansas cleans up their information from their response from their voters, from their national change of address, and that information is funneled to the Secretary of State or the state election administrator, and then that information is funneled to the state of Maryland, and then that information is sent back out. So it's an ongoing process, and each of the organizations that are involved are going to have different manpower issues. So the year after an election, particularly the first 9 months, I would say, we spend a lot of time doing list maintenance efforts.
How many states belong to ERIC now?
I believe it's 11
11?
plus
I
the District
thought it
of
was
Columbia. But again, I just want to point out that, I mean, ERIC is great because it has data matching qualities. But other states that do not belong to ERIC also are doing list maintenance. So if they received information back from their sample ballot or whatever it is they mail to their voters, then that information comes back to the county administrator or city administrator goes to their Secretary of State's office, and then that goes to the state of Maryland. And we're constantly receiving, slips of paper from jurisdictions that so-and-so has moved. And then once we receive it, that information, we confirm that they have, in fact, that Johnny Smith did, in fact, move from Maryland to Virginia. And we send this card to the new address. And then if Johnny responds to us and says, yeah, my new address is Virginia, we cancel them. If we don't hear from Johnny, then they are switched over to inactive.
Because Johnny might then have voted in Virginia and voted here too. And if he doesn't send it back, you just put him here inactive.
He becomes inactive, but if he were to show up at the polls in the primary of 2016, he has to show identification that says, I'm a resident of the state of Maryland.
Margaret, we had the instance last election, presidential election, we had people came here and said that the lady was living there for 5 years and she got the absentee vote or something for somebody who does not live there for the last 5 years. What do we do about this? Why wasn't that person inactive? So why he got...
I don't know the specifics.
The lady came here and talked to us about it.
If you're talking about Tansy Stafford, okay, there was, I don't really want to get into the specifics of her case. I'll be happy to talk to you about that. But it was not as clear cut as described.
No.
Okay.
But I do have a friend.
You know what?
The son moved to Virginia, and she keeps sending back. He said, my son moved to Virginia. She was still receiving mail from our Board of Election. And so many times she said, she told me that, and I told you that. I hope it's resolved by now. But I'm saying something like that is happening. People moved, and they did send something, but they still are getting mail from us.
And
if somebody...
all right, if we receive information that says this individual's moved, then they become inactive. But we're still required under the Help America Vote Act to mail the sample ballot for 2 federal elections. And if the individual that's receiving it sends it back, Pam Fessler did a story about this with NPR, and both Linda Lamone and I talked to her about this. And our issue is, eventually they will come off the rolls because they haven't voted. Is it possible that we've missed somebody or people fall in the cracks? Yes, it is entirely possible. But if someone sends the sample ballot back to us, or this green postcard back to us, and tells us they have changed their address, they will be canceled. We have thousands of cancellations. Look at the statistics. We have thousands of cancellations that take place monthly. You have 675,000 registered voters. 2 to 3% of them are churning through this county, moving in or coming out.
I thought the board, when this issue came up the last time, didn't the board decide to change some of the language on the sample ballot? Because the sample ballot does say return to sender, whatever. I do kind of remember
the post office.
And that's going to get implemented.
Underline it. Or
next
make it
we
election
highlighted it
yeah.
in the last mailing of it, I believe, didn't we? To make it more.
It's supposed to send.
I think the point that we talked about, people are not giving it back to the postman.
Yes.
And if they don't give it back to the postman, it's like not doing it.
Yeah.
My bringing it in here doesn't, and them telling it. If it goes back through the post office, then it's done. But that's something that most people don't do. I mean, they call up and say, my son's moved to Virginia, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, it is a crazy system, but I know it is the federal
Big
law
problem,
in
yeah.
terms of it, that it goes on for a longer period of time than you would think necessary.
I'm sorry, I meant to tell you. This is not dealing with voter registration. Enclosed in your packet is a memorandum from Mr. Leggett to George Leventhal. The Supreme Court issued a decision in the state of Maryland versus Wynn with regards to an income tax case. I don't know the specifics to it, but there will be refunds that will be going, which will impact the county and state budget. So there will be more information forthcoming in the future. It's dated today, May 18th.
And the impact is fiscal 16 and 17. Yeah, this is what I was referring when we were talking about, leasing additional equipment on our own, for, in terms of the county. They're just, it's a bad budget year.
It is, but I think that we need to make sure that it's understood by the council. So when the lines form and people complain, that we have at least made it obvious that we knew about it, we asked to alleviate it, and circumstances didn't allow us to do it. So we don't have to take the brunt of what's quite obvious going to happen.
Okay, well that leads into the State Board of Elections. Okay, first of all, the good news is the governor signed the bill into law that changed the date of the primary to April 26th. And that's going to trigger a lot of changes to the election calendar. And I believe that when you show up in June for the swearing in, we'll have the new election calendar. But in July of 2015, the new state board will inform the local boards the number of early voting centers that are required for each county and the city of Baltimore. And the deadline for the local boards of elections to submit the form will be September 22nd of 2015.
Margaret,
Yes.
if I can stop you there, could that number change, the early voting centers?
Not for us. I mean,
It only increases, right? If they don't decrease the number, or
no, we were funded for 9. That's what we'll get. There's some jurisdictions that are on the margin that go from
That could
1
get
to
more.
3, 3 to 5. So that's what that is all about. But no, we have not lost population in Montgomery County.
But Margaret, the 9th site is by authorization of the local board and the county.
That's right.
So we need to begin the process of requesting.
No, they
did.
it
They've
in the
included
budget.
it
that
already.
was in the
It's already
budget,
been done.
yeah.
That was in the budget.
That
It was
was in from the
specifically.
beginning, yeah,
Okay.
with the budget.
Okay, same day voter registration topics. Some questions were asked, and I thought I would share these with you. There is supposed to be a discussion at the biennial to discuss same day voter registration topics, and so I would urge you to be prepared to ask those questions there. They're the ones that are developing the rules and regs and working with the technology to make this work.
With this EMBA, the problem we have with them, we're giving them too much power. They're the one that deciding who's citizen, who's not, who can register, who cannot register, if you read it carefully. The bottom portion, 1, 2, 3.
They're,
Aren't
and
you giving them the authority to tell us?
MVA, you mean?
you need to take that up with the
Yeah,
State Board of
that's what I'm
Elections.
saying.
You're saying the state are the ones who provided the answers to these questions?
Yes.
And they have the authority to make these decisions?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, the state
Yeah.
is saying that.
Okay.
But they do know our problem.
Is there, to that question, is there a law giving them that authority, or have they assumed that authority?
EMBA?
Who's they?
The state.
State Board of Elections. The State Board of Elections by statute establishes
The policy.
the policies for uniform elections throughout the entire state.
And what MVA can do and can't do and all of that.
How they do it.
MVAs comes through motor voter, I believe,
Correct.
which is a federal statute.
Okay, but how about the portion here that deals with the citizenship
Yeah.
questions,
That's the one.
and, which I don't completely understand, but I don't pretend to be an immigration law expert. But it seems to be saying that MVA is going to make certain decisions about which individuals they're sending us, and they're not going to send us anyone who has not provided proof of lawful status. And I'm not sure, I thought that most people, when they sign up to register to vote, they don't have to provide proof of lawful status. They just have to sign and they have to assert and sign and subject to penalty that they are
Correct.
citizens.
It's an oath.
Lawful status,
There's an
that
oath.
means they have to be citizen, not even green card. not
Right. No, I
permanent.
understand they have to be citizen. No, green cards don't count.
No.
But I guess what I'm saying is that when they're referring to lawful status here, I'm not sure if they're including citizenship or not.
No.
But
They seem to be interchanging the two
right,
terms,
it
don't they?
may mean that when they say lawful status, they mean legal permanent resident, not citizen.
Well, let me tell you.
But whichever way you look at it,
that would
if they're not
exclude
going
them.
if they're not going to send information on people who haven't provided proof, and people aren't required to provide proof, that doesn't quite make sense.
Well, let me tell you what they are doing. And I was there, and she quoted this law. On one of my driver's license had Mary Jacqueline L. Phillips, which is my full name. Never used Mary. My Social Security card has Jacqueline L. Phillips, as does everything else, and they wouldn't give me my driver's license.
Whoa.
And she almost kept it and said you aren't going to be allowed. And
Recently?
Glenmont.
Recently.
Oh, Glenn,
Yeah, last week.
our favorite place.
Last week, and we chatted with each other about it, and I did get my driver's license back from her, and was able to drive home. But I was more than slightly upset because she told me I had to make an appointment with the passport people and the Social Security people, and she gave me all of these addresses to go to, and was not particularly. There was very little charm involved. And so I thought, when I'm reading this about citizens, never mind I've had a driver's license for 50 years, and have never had that problem before, and it's always been there.
Go to another location.
But she invoked this law, and I'm thinking about citizens getting their driver's license, but I didn't get mine.
There have been significant federal changes with regards to the issuance of state identification and motor vehicle licenses since 9/11. And there was considerable debate at the local level with regards to what's called the Real ID, which is a process that Maryland got into late in comparison to other states. And I know that I think that this is an issue that when it comes up at the biennial, you should just have your questions prepared and to talk to the state board as to what their intent is. And we will follow their intent because it will be information that is loaded into the electronic poll book that's on the EPIC server that we will be utilizing at the 9 early voting centers.
Then number 3, look at the number 3 there. You said temporary lawful status since June 1st, 2009. Then that means that if you're here 6 years, you're automatically citizen until you apply for citizenship. Please? I need an attorney to interpret that.
Well,
It's very.
I quite frankly don't understand that question or the question above,
Yeah.
which are both poorly worded, in my opinion.
Permanent lawful status. That doesn't mean you can have green card, you can have work permit.
Well, you can have
That means
135
that you are
different
a
kinds of legal
citizen.
visas,
Yeah.
right? There's over 135. You can have a TPS, you can have a student visa, you can
Yeah.
have a temporary work
Yeah.
permit,
H1 visa,
residency.
yeah.
So the fact is, this is not clear. I mean,
Can we formulate, or ask Kevin, or to formulate questions so that we're asking the right questions at the board meeting? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Can we get a copy of the MOU that they're referring to?
mhm.
Yeah, I'll request that.
Yeah, because that might help us. Could I ask a couple of questions relating to same-day registration? Last month we had a conversation about having a driver's license in hand for same-day registration. Is it safe to say that for someone who doesn't have a driver's license, that a state-provided ID would serve the same purpose?
Yes, it does, as well as a learner's permit.
Okay, so it basically it doesn't require that it be a driver's license. It could be a Asian majority card or
Identification card.
a state-issued identification
It
card.
could be a passport too, couldn't it?
Passport is the best.
I can't answer that question.
I don't know.
Okay.
Passport, no?
I don't know. I think it's a state, it's a
I think
state
it's a state
ID.
state ID.
Yeah.
State ID.
And then second question, if a same-day registrant, when they come to early voting and they register, do they automatically vote provisionally, or will they vote by early voting if they have an ID?
You need to talk to the state board about that answer.
Okay, we don't know the answer to that.
No, I don't feel comfortable giving an answer at this
Would,
time.
ask what you asked again, David? I'm sorry.
If someone comes and is a same-day registrant at early voting,
Yes.
and then they vote and they have an ID, let's say they have a state-provided driver's license,
Yes.
will they vote provisionally or will they vote by the regular early voting?
It depends if they're in this list or not.
Right, if they're in the
There's
poll.
remember, a list is going to be established and put in the poll books, is my understanding, that comes through MVA and is, then put there by the state. If their name is on that list,
Then
they
vote
will
regular.
get a ballot, a regular ballot.
Okay, and
If it's not, they then have to vote provisionally.
Not provisional. Isn't that somebody?
Provisionally.
The judge will be sitting by provisional judge. That's different.
Well, they're going to have a table for handling.
There's two.
Two
You are
judges,
correct.
yeah, right.
There will be, as I understand, the training materials are not completed, but as I understand, the setup that we have been charged with designing for each polling place is there are two workstations. One is a provisional workstation, and the other is the same-day
same-day
voter registration workstation with ballots that will be keyed differently.
I'm sorry, key differently whether or not they're on the list and they bring ID?
The ballots, the provisional ballots will have a barcode on there so that it will not be allowed to be scanned, whereas those individuals that qualify as the same-day voter will be able to insert their ballot immediately. Will vote like a regular person.
Okay, but then the ones who qualify are the ones who are on this pre-qualified list?
Yes, that's my understanding.
So having an ID is not, that's not the determining factor. It's whether
That's
they're on,
true.
whether
Yes.
they're on this
Gervais
list.
said in here.
Because the people on this predetermined list have been checked,
Right.
if you see,
Right,
beyond.
right, well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I don't need to tell the people at this table that entrusting that to the MVA
No.
causes heartburn.
That was my
That's
question.
what they
Yeah.
decided to do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So how would you, you had made a suggestion that, Kevin, is that something that,
I will do it. Yeah, I'll
develop a series of questions that,
I will do that, and I will obtain a copy of the MOU between the state board and MBA.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then, how will we do that? Because we won't be meeting before we go down there. You'll email them to us so we can comment on them? Or you will
Yes.
bring them up at the meeting, or
No,
how?
I'll
We
email them.
generally, we sit as
Yeah.
a group, if I recall.
But I'll send them to you
We want to see it
beforehand.
though.
Oh, yeah, but I meant we'll be able to talk amongst ourselves.
To
Right.
review it.
I'll send the questions before we go down.
Thank you.
And then hopefully, I'll just contact the Assistant Attorney General to get a copy of the MOU. If not, if we have to do a formal request, that may take 30 days. Maybe not.
Thank you. David, read the following page. In addition to not receiving Margaret's report. Read. The
Okay.
following. It's
Okay.
your report, Margaret.
So
In
the last-
addition
the
for
last
not
page.
receiving
Board-
information
okay.
individual.
I have nothing further with regards to the State Board of Elections because it's really covered under the new voting system. Okay, so we'll talk about that later, further in the meeting.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Okay. So the next is Kevin, attorney's report.
And I have nothing new to report. We have no pending litigation or, as far as I know, threatened litigation. We have no petitions that are pending or threatened. And we have no outstanding FOIA requests for documents.
Have I not been reading that aren't there petitions that are out there? People are getting.
I'm not aware of any.
About what?
I think I encountered somebody, and it's been weeks, if not a month or more, signing petitions that would be on the ballot. But you haven't heard of any?
I have not, and generally, most individuals take advantage of the advanced determination process to at least have us review and approve the form that they're going to use before they begin circulating it. And that certainly has not happened.
And
So
the
I'm-
state board has not informed me of any petitions being circulated in any community in the state of Maryland.
Huh. Okay. Thank you.
I didn't know the another
I
state.
dreamed it up. Maybe it was a dream, a nightmare. Old business, high school program.
The graphs were sent out by Allison. Roberto is here to kind of talk about the Future Vote program and what he does besides the Montgomery County Spring Voter Registration Drive. And Lolita is here to talk about this spring's, we just got them all back, right? You still have 4 out. So we won't have a final report, but we did have a list of how many, what schools did not, how many schools did not participate? 9.
9?
9 schools chose not to participate this year.
Chose not to or didn't respond?
I mean, 9.
Let me rephrase that.
9 high schools.
9 high schools did not come and pick up their bags to conduct voter registration.
Just a point of clarification.
13.
13.
Oh, just gets worse.
That's a majority.
Is that include private schools or is that just Montgomery County public schools? Just public schools. Thank
We
you.
did have a private school.
I think there was one private school,
Yeah.
wasn't there?
Yes, good count.
Yeah.
So 13 out of
25.
This was in the advance package, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Roberto.
So, in conjunction with the voter registration drive that we do at the high school with SMOG, we have Future Vote students who are right now sophomores and juniors, which will become next academic year seniors and juniors. So we're doing we're focusing our efforts on those students turning 17 years of age to meet the requirements to participate as an election judge for the upcoming primary election before they leave for college. And then the juniors who will be the sophomores who will be juniors in turn will become seniors that can also participate in the general election November 8th. So far the schools we have confirmed and we're actively engaging is Churchill, Blair, BCC, Gaithersburg, Damascus, Sherwood, Richard Montgomery, Whitman, Rockville, Poolesville, Stone Ridge, Einstein, Magruder, and St. John's Prep, Frederick. we're still coordinating the other drives with the other jurisdictions. Last 2 weeks were AP exams, so it was very difficult for them to schedule a 2-day consecutive drive at their locations.
This week's exams.
Yeah, no, it's kind of switched short, but the students know, and I purposely identified juniors and sophomores because seniors, they leave, so they're graduating. The goal would be to go back early fall, and then again right after winter break to do another conjunction voter registration drive and recruitment of 17-year-old election judges.
Are any of the schools that you listed schools that did not participate in the drive?
I do not know, to be honest. I didn't cross-reference. So the goal would be, beyond the relationship we have with SMOG, is to leverage the future vote students. Since the expectation of said students is to serve as election judges when they're 17. So it's an opportunity to bring them into the fold, get a little bit of experience before they go away to college, and ensure they know how to leverage their voting rights when they come back from college, if they do leave the area. So that's kind of the goal of the program itself. And now we're reaching that decade. When we started in 2004, 2014 was the 5th election, 10th year. So that would be the ultimate goal, to have all the high schools and several of the private schools to help us in the recruitment. The students engage the student faculty. They put the drive together. They help us. We will create posters. We deliver the posters to the students. They post. They do morning announcements. They promote within the clubs inside of the schools and their history teachers, etc., whether they have IB program or Magna program. And then during lunchtime, we will send a staff person or myself to each of the locations to assist the future vote ambassador, to get that interest involved. And then the staff is there to make sure that those forms are correct or there's any missing information, but also to bring back those forms back to the office. We don't want forms in the hands of the students because we want to process as soon as possible. So we're starting actually today. We're at 3 schools, and we're trying to get as much as possible before the end of the school year. But the goal will be back when we go back in the fall.
So you have a contact person at each of these schools?
Yes. Yes.
As well as a student ambassador at each of the schools?
Yes, I've found that it works quicker and easier if it comes from the student, because that's the student's backyard. They know the staff, they have their favorite history teacher, their favorite counselor, they have an inroads with the principal. So we trained them. We had 4 sessions in the end of April, and we called in the students and we trained them about the norms, expectations. We talked about early voting, voting by mail, election day expectations. We put a little cursor about the new voting system is coming into play. So they're really waiting to not only engage the students and the faculty, but also their own parents. So they're that's the other outreach team that we have within the school system. Keep in mind, there's over 200,000 students.
So how many high schools do you have?
So far that we're confirmed, 18.
And how many of those are public?
Well, there's 2 private.
Okay, so 16 public high schools.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear Walter Johnson on your list.
Actually, you know what? Walter Johnson is another one. That's the one I was forgetting. We have a student there.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, Marissa. She's one of my assistants. She comes. Yeah.
It still sounds like there's a significant segment of schools that are not participating in each program, although I guess we'd have to see whether they're doing one and not the other.
Ideally, we want to go to every single school. This is kind of a difficult time because of AP, getting ready for college. The students are there physically, but mentally they're already in the summer. So, but the whole goal between the summertime and we're looking at around the end of September to go back, and then right after students return from spring break, because that's when we're going to initiate training for election judges. So we want to get those students in as much as possible.
And we have emphasized with the school administration that a April voter registration drive is not in the works.
Not going to work with this primary.
This February date is, the month of February is really critical for the last drive, and that the voter registration happening in April definitely is not, well, first of all, there's a prohibition because registrars are prohibited from conducting voter registration 7 days prior to the deadline. So that almost takes us into that we would only be able to do voter registration the first week of April in the schools, and then we would have to collect everything back.
Who in the school system is your point of contact for that?
I've been working through Robin Cafino and Mrs. Rubin.
Is Robin Cafino still in the school system?
Yes, she is.
I wonder if there's any chance of,
She's a contract worker, but she's still part of the
Okay,
system.
yeah, okay.
I wonder if there's any chance of using their election for student council, just a thought, at that time and do a voter registration drive or
That's-
blurb or something at the time they elect the student
That's
council.
what they used
That's
to
the
do.
whole program.
Yeah.
That's the whole
That's when
program
they-
at
yeah.
the student council president time?
Yeah, we did
Election?
the one drive at Churchill at the same time they had their student election. And at that event, we had about 13 students signing up to be election judges. But the issue that the SMOB and the election is kind of separate entity. And a lot of times, depending on the school, they want to focus on that, getting their students through the pipeline. And that's the reason why we're focusing now after SMOB, and then we're going to go back in the fall and then after winter break.
There also might be a significant difference between when is the best time to recruit judges and when is the best time to register voters.
That's what I was thinking.
Because I would think that the registration of voters, like Margaret was suggesting, should be tied to the voter registration schedule and the election schedule, because that's when there's going to be the greatest excitement. Whereas there are going to be students who probably work as election judges for the SMOB election, who might be interested in becoming election judges for us.
Well, it was interesting, the majority of the students that coordinated the SMOB elections are seniors, and the majority that I approached said no because they're going out of town for school. So because they're seniors, they are physically, the majority are not going to be in Maryland.
Right.
So they said if I was going to school around the area, great, but if I'm going to the West Coast, I'm going south, I'm going north. So that's why we're really focusing on sophomore and juniors, because I've seen a lot of 16, 17-year-old sophomores, which was interesting. I suppose when I went to school, if you were 17, you're a senior. So I know there's sometimes in the school system they change the date of entrance when your child will go to kindergarten.
Yeah, the cutoff is now much earlier than it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they're younger.
September instead
Have
of
you
January.
thought about doing it back to school when they're forming clubs and stressing, this is a good way to get service hours?
Yeah, the 25, that's one big push is the 25 student service learning credits or the stipend. So the students, it's interesting. One of the comments was, well, I could knock a third out in one day. Of course there's training and Monday evening, Saturday, and we explained that to them. But yeah, the challenge working together when the school initiate, there's so much going on that the students and the staff prefer to focus on MCPS focus activities, and then since we're an outside agency, once the dust has settled, then they're more than welcome to have us in to engage their students. And this comes from different administrations across the
Well,
school
this is
themselves.
certainly the year in the election, I think, to really bear down. And, there's going to be a lot of activity, I dare say, in the high schools around, the election next year. We had, is this the point where we would talk about the letter we had asked David to draft at our last board meeting?
Yeah, the letter that's in the packet is actually the version I sent last night. The version I sent one in response to Mary Ann's email this morning that you all may or may not have seen.
It added a line, didn't it?
It added a couple of things, actually. It added a line to talk about the 2016 election and its importance. I can tell people where it can be found if you'd like. It also added some language to clarify that it was, in the first paragraph, the second sentence where it says, while we sincerely appreciate the school system's strong support for this program over the years, I added members of the Board of Elections of both political parties are very concerned that fewer than half of Montgomery County Public School high schools participated in the drive this year. And it goes on from there. And then I added a sentence at the end of that third paragraph that reads as follows: we believe that the 2016 election which includes open seat races for President of the United States, U.S. Senate, and U.S. House of Representatives, is particularly likely to generate a high level of interest and possibly classroom discussion, and so provides a great opportunity for a rejuvenation of this program. I was going to comment about back to school night that in 2016, back to school night is going to come in many cases very close before the voter registration deadline. I mean, the voter registration deadline is going to be in October, presumably.
You mean for the general election?
For the general election. And so I wouldn't, while I realize that the school system in general may be more interested in focusing on their stuff and not on ours, from our point of view, I would think that voter registration before the general election would be something that'd be worth thinking about.
Well, I'm wondering, at an event like that, can we have a table set up at the school, a registration table, as people are coming to back to school night and?
Anyway,
future ambassadors.
Well, I think this letter, which is meant to really give a boost to what you're doing out there, type of thing, and a little nudge, if you will, to coming from the superintendent's level to reach down into the schools to say, hey, let's get with the project here.
Let me ask a question. This gentleman, Larry, that you know,
he's the interim superintendent of school.
He's leaving the 30th of June.
Correct.
And is there any way we can get it to somebody else that might still be
I
there?
I would be very surprised if it didn't get to somebody else, as long as we get it there soon.
I would suggest that we send a copy to Dr. Navarro, who's the superintendent of academic achievements, and under her are all the principals of the high schools. I think she would be very interested in supporting this. I gave her a heads up, and she said she had no idea that the participation was this low.
Yeah,
okay?
I know. I'd be,
so she's very interested in making sure that this works.
Good.
So I would CC her on
sure.
on that.
I think Tim Warner too is the director of student engagements.
Community something, but I think she has whoever she has doing this. I think she would like to.
I think it makes sense to copy a deputy superintendent. I think when you start copying others, then then it gets into makes it more
especially
complicated.
Since they're all under her.
But I mean, he is in charge of the school system, until the end of June. So, like I said, I'd be very surprised if something weren't going to happen as a result of a letter like this.
And possibly could be extended, I presume, in light of the fact
I
that
think
they're a little behind.
It might be extended for a year.
Yeah.
I don't know what the legalities of that are, but or the practicalities. But he's a long-time school system person, knows how to get things done. He's the chief operating officer. He was the chief operating officer. He'd be in a very good position to help to make this happen.
Great. Thank
you.
you.
Motion to get this letter done.
Pardon me?
Do you need a motion to get this letter done? Or do we just go ahead and agree to it?
I mean, unless.
Well,
we don't need a
that's the only
motion.
question that I didn't answer, which was about whether it should be signed by everyone, by the president, or by the president and the secretary. My only goal there was to make sure that they know that this is I know from our past conversations about this subject that this is of great interest to all of us. Of both political parties. Obviously, we're about to have a transition, and I wouldn't want anyone to think other than that this is a continuing concern.
David, when the letter goes, it should go from the president, because the letterhead everybody's name is there. So we are not Republican, Democrat. We are one group, which doesn't matter. The name is there.
All letters that I'm aware of go under the signature of the president, unless the president delegates it elsewhere for some reason.
The president can say, I'm writing on behalf of the board.
Right,
perhaps.
which is in this letter.
That's what it
Like I
says.
said, I don't feel that strongly. I know that we did all sign a letter to the Gazette about the MVA.
That was a letter to the editor, though. I think it
The
falls
editor-
into a different situation.
Yeah, that was a different one. This one, I
So
guess the
just for
president will know.
for clarification purposes, David, the letter that was sent today is the letter that should go out under Mary Ann's signature on letterhead.
The letter that was sent this morning, I can.
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
is it
I can-
forwarded to everybody? To,
Yes, you know, it went to everybody.
Yes.
I think including Margaret. But let me just. I'll tell you the exact.
Well,
time
I got
sent
it, but I made the changes. I mean, suggested changes.
I sent it at 7:42 this morning.
Okay.
And I included Margaret and Allison and Lisa.
Well, if everybody's, I mean, because time is of the essence with it.
Get it done.
The only thing that needs to be added is the CC that Gracie just mentioned, and I did make a reference to attaching the school-by-school results for this year and the last 2 years before this year.
CC to who?
Dr. Navarro, the
well,
superintendent.
we don't have this year's completed.
Well, then I would say send
Last year?
No, I would say send what you have.
Can
I mean,
we,
we-
this was actually really good.
No, actually, I have problems with that.
You do?
I do.
Cool.
I have a number of concerns about that.
Okay.
But which I will get to. Although it does show the trend, the recent trend, but
Right.
I do have a number of concerns about that. I think it's very important. They just completed a drive, and we just learned that 13 out of 25 high schools didn't participate. I don't see how we could send them something without that information.
Right, letting them know.
I mean, we could say to them, you know, we're still waiting to hear from X number of schools, or you know, whatever. I don't see how. I mean, we're talking about a current problem. We're not talking about a problem that's a year old.
Can we
Okay.
attach the schools that participated and the ones that didn't?
Well, the list that they gave us, I don't remember if I brought it with me, but the list of the results of the drive typically show each high school and how many votes you registered of each party, etc. That's what you gave us, I believe, last month.
Last time,
Yeah,
From the year before.
Right, for 2014.
For 2015.
And 2015 is still coming in.
Yeah, but the
Right.
drive ended when? Wasn't it the month of April?
Well, it comes in the month of May, but it's done during the month of April.
Was there a deadline
Could
that was
I
given?
have? Well, of course there was. But can you give me the list of high schools?
I can give you the names. We haven't completed processing because
I understand. I just want the list of names of the high schools that have returned registrations. And can I get that today?
yes,
Okay.
the date now.
Could you go begin to compile that now?
And don't send them a graph. Just send them
Yeah, just the
simple
the
language.
list. Just a list.
Okay.
Well, if we're not sending the results of the drives, then the letter needs to be amended to take that sentence out, where it says we have attached for your review the final. I mean, I personally think that there's nothing quite as powerful as seeing a bunch of zeros in that list. So if the consensus is that it should be from 2014, I don't have a problem with that. I do think that we should include some information about 2015 because it just happened and we still have a large number of schools not participating.
Yes.
So why don't we just list the number of schools that participated?
Yeah.
And with a
Instead of
notation
take out
that the
final,
results haven't.
the
Just
word
like
final.
current.
I'm happy to do whatever you want, but I just want to make sure the board is comfortable and Mary Ann, who's going to sign it, is comfortable with whatever it is that
Yeah, well,
we're doing.
I mean, I think the listing, we have the 2014 report and 2015
You can get partial returns.
is
or-
still in development.
Well, it's still in development, meaning that we are going to provide what we have?
We will provide what we have,
Well, a
yes.
list of schools, yeah.
Okay.
But indicating it's not a
The
final.
name
Yeah,
of the,
you
could
can
you
take
spell
the
the last
word
name?
You can
final.
send it to her by...
Navarro, like Nancy Navarro,
Okay.
Navarro. First name is Maria. Doctor.
it's-
Current.
I'm sorry?
And you said
Final.
she's
Yeah.
with.
The superintendent of academic.
She's probably deputy superintendent.
Deputy
Yeah.
superintendent of academic achievement. I can send you
Okay.
the email if you like.
Anything else?
Did we want to talk about the charts or not?
This one?
Yes.
I don't.
I don't know that we need to. The only thing I was going to say is that the time of the drive has not always been in conjunction with the student board member election. For one thing, there hasn't been a student board member election. There's only been a student board member election since 1978. But in addition, I know for a fact that in 1990 there were 2 high school voter registration drives, one in February and one in, I believe, October. And so it's a relatively recent occurrence, I believe. Well, in the context of a 40-year period, it's a relatively recent occurrence that it's been tied to that. And I think it would be useful for the data purposes to know when the election was and when the drive was, because I think that's one of the factors that we've been saying is potentially influencing this, is that a drive that's held right before an election is obviously in a different category than a drive that isn't. Although I would point out that the trend for the most recent few years is that in past years there always was almost always the numbers going up and down. In the recent years, it's only been going down. I do know that there are some suggestion here as to what some of the causes might be, but we don't have data as to whether the causes are. We just know that pre-registration started a certain year, et cetera. I mean, for example, motor voter has been in place for quite some time, so that obviously makes a difference. And the other thing I was going to point out is that just to get some context here, there are 10,000 students who are current high school seniors, and roughly the same number who are juniors, and roughly the same number who are sophomores. So if 4,000 students are registering, and there are 10,000 students in each grade, and some of them will be ineligible, but not half of them. That means there's a lot of students out there who are still potentially eligible to register who are not registering through any of the means that are available to them. Some of them may not be getting their driver's license at age 16 or even by age 18, et cetera. So I would hope that when we're looking at this, we're not just trying to catch up to the 1970s, but we're also trying to make it as available to eligible registrants as we can.
Maybe depend who's president. What is?
Well, I think we're moving forward with a plan of action, and I wouldn't spend a great deal of time going back over this. I think let's look forward. Let's reach out with the letter, and obviously we'll follow closely how this is going, and what more may need to be done. Okay. Thank you very much, Roberta. Any other old business?
Oh, I have an old business. Sorry, Madam. I have a question. I remember that one of the meetings I mentioned that in the early election, I met one of the judges who was complaining that the judges in the classroom are lost. I mean, the people they're lost. They ask questions. The professor said, whoever is training them, I don't have time, go back, read the book. And you mentioned that the manual comes from the State Board of Election. We don't have a control how to do that one. Your report said that you're hiring 2 full-time, 1 part-time to do the curriculum for the new system, whatever you call them. What is the qualification you hire them? What they're supposed to have?
Well, I'm going to tell you quite honestly, the qualifications are going to have to be redone because we have a new voting system. And in the past, we utilized election judges that received high marks as individuals who helped us develop the curriculum, as well as they were familiar with the voting equipment or the electronic poll book, depending on what the situation is. So
the State Board therefore do not give us the curriculum. We put the curriculum together, right?
They give us the election judge manual.
Yeah.
They tell us what, which are, if you recall, we go through the polling place evaluation, and these are the critical points that the election judges are supposed to hit in terms of marks. And then what we do is develop teaching methods so that these individuals will learn these materials so that they're capable of conducting the election on election day or early voting.
Based on our experience, our training is not that good though, so we have to keep in mind when we're having this new system and new curriculum, so do a little bit better job training the judges. We don't have,
So you're saying that in the past you've used former sort of high-rated election judges, but obviously they don't have experience with the new system. Where are you thinking of?
Well, we're going to be utilizing a lot of state resources with regards to reaching out to ES&S and other states with regards to the curriculum. But quite honestly, at this point, we don't have, I haven't seen an election judge manual to give you an informed opinion as to how we're going to proceed. But it will be, just as we evaluate the election judges on what the state identifies are the critical points. So completing the integrity report. The election judges in the general election showed that they completed it correctly in 90% or 92% of the time. That the various signage that's required by the state law, we had the polling place support people go in and look, are all these signs up? They were well in the 96, 98 percentile. Were the quiz or the survey that we do, did the voters feel welcoming and did they feel comfortable? That was in the 92 percentile. So all of those reports that we provided to you in March talk about the election judges meeting the requirements and how the voters felt when they voted at either an early voting center or an election day site.
But you haven't touched on, in going through those items, the problems, which the biggest one being the close of election. This isn't something that the public is seeing when they're going and voting, but it's something that's become a nightmare for what our final tallies and all of that. And there's a lot of confusion that goes on. Now, I recognize we're going to have a whole new system, but just as an example, that's an area that has been a problem. The night before setup is an area that we've all witnessed problems with. Again, not something the general public is seeing and commenting on, but
the election judges, by the requirements of the state, which is what we have to go by, that helps you get certification. In terms of getting the PC memory cards back and completing the integrity reports, they were in the 92 to 96 percentile. They did it right.
I don't doubt you, but what about the issues I've addressed?
The issue that you're bringing up is the closing process. The closing process is a new requirement that says that the election judges need to close down the voting unit or voting units in such a manner that the election results are posted before a specific time period. And the staff acknowledges that this is a goal that we will meet in the upcoming 2016 election. And that's what we intend to do. And with regards to the setup, the election judges call us the night before and identify any specific problems. You have to understand that these individuals are coming together for the first time and are trying to come together as an organizational group. And yeah, it is chaos. I acknowledge that it's chaos. But when they open at 7 o'clock in the morning, by all of the measures that the state and we have identified, they are meeting those measures in capacity, in exceeding capacity.
I suggest that by coming from academia, when you're teaching them in the classroom, leave room a little bit practical training. Let them go and see. This gentleman who talked to me, gave me his card, I don't have it with me. He is a PhD, he's a researcher. He was in the class. He said he looked at these faces, they were lost. Some of them were lost, and they didn't know what the person was talking. So these are the ones when they go to the voting places, the one they fail because they didn't learn that much.
But you didn't have any polling places fail.
Not fail, but we heard, all of us at this table, I believe, heard comments from election judges that they felt their training was insufficient. And so moving forward, it's going to be absolutely critical that, with a whole new system coming on board, etc., that we have these train the trainer folks who are going to be putting together the curriculum that goes out to do all the massive training that needs to be done. It's just got to be spot on and understandable.
Well, you need to understand that the state board is in this particular election, they've made it very clear that they're in the driver's seat. That even our train the trainers.
Well, they're not in the driver's seat if we're writing the curriculum.
Right.
They're just setting out the broad policies and
not this go around. They're going to be the state board. We will definitely make sure. I hear what you're saying. If there, I would respectfully say that there's a tremendous amount of hands-on training with the poll books, with the with the old DREs. The hands-on training. The purpose of going online was to get the election judges to read the material so that when they showed up, we covered the ADA materials, and then we went straight into hands-on. The judges, if they don't feel comfortable with the hands-on process, whether it's provisional voting, whether it was the old touchscreen or the poll book, they were told to come back and we would work with them one-on-one.
Now
maybe
who wants to do that?
Maybe Margaret.
And who's going to do that?
Well, when you're writing the curriculum, maybe you need to look at a little bit more time spent on opening and on setting up and closing. That seems to be where this problem is. Maybe just more time was allocated to that. Once it's set up, they seem to run real well, as long as we have enough machines, having nothing to do with the judges. But maybe as the curriculum is developed, you just think about more time being spent on those two areas. That seems to be what we're talking about.
Let me give you an example. That's the last one I'm talking. In the last election, Clara Barton, I was there. The audio video didn't work. Me and the Romer, one of your person, we went there, we read the book, we tried to do manually to work with it. We did step by step what the book said. And then, like GPS, you arrive in your destination. Doesn't say, where is it? Then that's it. It was blank. Doesn't say what to do after that. So the young lady who was helping, then I had to leave. I said, listen, you go and let me look more, then I let you know. She texted me. She said, oh, the rest of them was in another book. It wasn't all in the same book. I was following the same procedure. It was somewhere else, and she has to go dig and find out from different page or somewhere and bring it over there and do it. I'm talking about, since you're doing it and it's a new system, let's pay a little bit more attention.
I acknowledge that
judges
that was...
They are not knowledgeable. They are not, some of them are not computer savvy.
I acknowledge that was an issue. But the books have been consolidated. This is an issue that we heard before. This was an issue that as we came together to develop the training material for the new voting system, we heard that. And all of that information, as well as the training exercises, are going to be combined in one book. So it's going to be a massive book, but it's going to be in one book.
Okay. We're just trying to make it easy.
Okay. Any other old business? Next is the 2016 election preparation.
Okay, in your packet is this graph. Based on the allocation of monies from the state of Maryland, it was determined that you had sent a letter to the State Board of Elections asking for 2 DS200s at each of your polling locations. And the State Board is giving us, in essence, 1. We will have approximately 30 extra units to deploy as needed. I have, every time I've had an opportunity to talk about this issue, I have asked the state that in the upcoming fiscal year that more equipment be leased. Prince George's County has asked the same thing, as well as I understand it, Baltimore County. There are a lot of steps that all of us are going to be going through. One of them is going to be time in motion tests in terms of the mock election to see what types of problems are going to happen in the sterile environment of the state board as they prepare this equipment. They talk about walking up, taking 4 seconds, and walking away. Based on myself and Alicia Alexander's conversations with election administrators in Miami-Dade County, Minneapolis, that experience is not 4 seconds. It's more like 12 or 16 seconds. And so that's where lines build up. I've advocated directly with the State Board of Elections. I've advocated directly with any staff members. They were here. I was just going to talk about change management staff came over. It was number 1 on my list. The equipment is inadequate. And so the question is, and it's to the state, is if we can lease more equipment, when can we lease more equipment? When will we know we can lease more equipment? And is the county on the hook for the full cost?
Well, and this goes to your earlier concern, Jackie.
So, going on with that, the change management staff came over and SBE representative visited with us regarding the implementation of the new voting system, equipment allocation, as I mentioned. We emphasized that we believe that the allocation will create long lines and more equipment must be leased. Training on the equipment, I was referring to training by our staff on the election management software. Training the trainers for training of the election judges was another high priority. That training needs to be in place so that we can have our trainers in starting their process of education and working with the equipment so they can train the election judge. Timeliness of the materials, such as the election equipment guide, so that we have it on time instead of trying to place catch up. And then software for the poll books needs to be timely, and that's been an issue in the past. The voting equipment timeline update. The hardware training right now is talking about mid-July of 2015. Software training in terms of the election management system would be September through October.
Who are you training?
That would be myself,
The staff.
Janet,
Okay.
Lisa, Jerry. Software training, we would, for instance, create the ballot for the city of Rockville. So that would be the software. We do pull down different tabs and create the election. Poll book upgrade, generally FY16, which means it's anywhere from July 1st to June 30th, hopefully before the election. Mock election after October 18th, but prior to November 1st. Pilot election, the only jurisdiction that's interested in conducting a pilot election today is the city of Rockville. And Friday, the city of Rockville, as well as Montgomery County, and the state board talked through different issues as it relates to conducting the city of Rockville election using the equipment that you see here today. And we're expecting a decision in the next, hopefully this month.
Ballpark, how many voters do they have?
They have 10 polling places. I don't know how many voters they have. We're talking about deploying 10 of these units. I think the most voters at one polling place. What was it? 2,000?
They have total about 35,000.
Okay, and the largest polling place was.
Rockville Swim Center.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
4 to 5,000.
That's the
35.
largest.
Swim Center. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and the voter turnout is generally less than 25% or much.
And what ballots exactly will they be voting? Are they voting paper ballots that are scanned?
Mm-hmm.
So it won't be the machine that's being used at early voting?
The ballot marking device?
Yeah.
No. They will not be using that. Right? Okay.
Will it be a possibility? If I mean, because as I understand it, they use that for a handicap voter.
Yeah, we will have
one at each. Okay.
for election day.
Okay.
At each of the 10 places.
But they don't have early voting like we have early voting. They have like advanced absentee voting. Anyway, that decision, procurement updates, voting equipment carts. This equipment is going to be packed in this very large black cart. That bid was completed and the manufacturing is starting, I think, this week.
Margaret, you're talking about one big black thing going to each 220 or whatever, 30 polling places. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it will hold the DS200. It will hold the ballots. It will hold 2 ballot bins to hold the ballots inside. It's supposed to include the express vote, but I think that's kind of iffy, as well as supplies such as pens and paper and the types of things that the election judges generally use. Okay, the voting booths. We will have voting booths. The state is purchasing them. The bid closes on May 29th. I don't know what, then that's the end of it.
We purchase those, they don't come from the state.
No, the state is purchasing those. That's
And
a 50-50.
These are all state procurements that she's referencing.
Do you have any idea what that means, voting booths? I mean, so it's not going to be long tables with dividers.
Oh, it's not.
No, I do not know what the booth's going to look like.
Individual.
What an expense that is.
Yeah.
Then ballot bins that go into the DS200. Each DS200 gets 2 bins. It's at least 6 months away. Privacy sleeves, that bid closed May 11th.
Excuse me, why, if they're having individual voting booths, do they need privacy sleeves?
So when you walk to the polling place, you're not just, your ballot isn't just floating
When you walk to the scanner.
Right, to the
Right,
scanner.
yeah.
Okay.
So nobody sees it.
And then the express press printer that we need for early voting, that's to be determined at this time. So that's where we're at. I continue to serve on the Rules and Regs Committee. I've been told that tomorrow is my last meeting in terms of just finishing going through all the rules and regs and the recommendations of changes. Allison asked me to share with you that the Communications Committee was informed that the state had selected a communications advertising agency. Their rules of procurement require them to notify all the bidders that lost, and of course the bidders that lost have the right to file an objection or an appeal. So that process is going on, but supposedly we're going to hear any day now. Leslie Woods continues to serve on the election judge. committee. She is working with other other county local boards of elections to develop the election training material, and they're still on track, or they believe that they're going to be done by August 1st. So that's actually pretty good news for us. And the rest of the committees are dealing with the procurement side, and so that's pretty much it with regards to the state board. So they also, at the biennial meeting, they will have the new equipment there. You will also have ES&S representatives there, and they will be describing the various, what they plan to do with the equipment. So, in the different training materials and things like that. So I would encourage you to ask ES&S and ask the state board staff, kind of where their plans are. When you're over at the meeting.
But when? During what kind of time frame? You mean individually, or in a committee meetings, or in general session?
Well, you will be going through an orientation with the state board staff, Nikki Trella, and those folks, and those would be the time. That probably is the best time for you to talk about that, if possible.
Is that an opportunity to talk about the number of scanners?
Yep. I mean, they did. I will say they did ask for a supplemental to get more equipment, and it just did not make to the legislature and the governor.
They didn't get it.
And they did not get it. So I know you know the sad story of supplementals there.
Well, hopefully it's not going to be sad for us.
Yes.
A suggestion about that.
Okay. So, unless there's any other questions with regards to the new voting system, otherwise I have we received the Board of Elections received our contribution for our contributions of clothing to the Linkage to Learning, which we mentioned previously, but we did get a certificate from the governor, or from the county executive legate. Sorry about that. Good. And for those of you, this was in Mr. Wheeler Dealer. Is he still here? Alberto. Continue to work the free media. So the Montgomery County Guide included information on recruiting poll workers. So, and he's got a pledge, and we are hoping the artwork stays somewhat the same for the fall and next winter.
Yeah, in the fall we will get 2 pages to promote the voting system. We have information then. And as we get closer to the primary, we'll get 3.
Yes, it's free.
It's free.
Yes, we're into free media.
Something's free. Okay. I
had a couple of questions.
So, I'm sorry. Yes.
Do we do the door prize? We've talked about that in the past. Do we have to do something about that?
I take care of that.
Good. Good news. Thank you.
Important thing.
The door prize is scary.
I know. She loves to tell the story every time. I won, and I wasn't there. I was up calling the office, and nobody else is allowed to pick up your door prize. So I have no clue what it was.
The next question is, I see here board member orientation, Nikki Carlson. Do we need to, by email or somehow, decide what kind of questions we want to ask? Margaret just said we need to get some questions. We've got Kevin doing some, but some of these other things, we want to make sure everything's covered we want to have covered. And Margaret was just saying you need to ask questions at orientation.
Once she talks, then the question is there. Among her talk.
Well, yeah, but we have questions here about it. Do we want Do we have any other questions? Just if anybody has any questions, they need to email them to you.
Question last time?
Well, no, it doesn't come from, and at the timing of this, I'm no longer board president at the time of the meeting. As I recall this meeting, 4 years ago when I was new and practically our whole board was, they go around county by county. You sit at a table by your county, and generally the board president will stand up and introduce the other board members. Did I get your name right that time? No, probably not. And
As far as you don't call me Khomeini, I'm okay.
And then it goes into, a lecture kind of thing. Now, thinking back 4 years ago, we didn't know much of anything,
Well, that's my question, and Margaret just sat there and said, make sure you ask questions on 2 or 3 subjects. And I just thought we need to perhaps be a little organized about that. Maybe talk this ahead of time.
I mean,
To the extent allowed by law.
I know. I mean, you can ask, and the questions will become self-evident, if you will, according to what she's presenting and talking about.
I just don't want to come back here and then say we should have asked
And
that.
I would think anybody that has a question, would feel free to ask it. It does not have to come from one person.
I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that we all were on the same. Not that the questions are all the same, it's just we were all on the same page. Okay, let's go.
Yes, David.
Just a thought about this, our scanner allotment issue. It's great that Margaret and her counterparts in Prince George's and Baltimore County have made the case. I'm wondering whether it makes sense for us and perhaps our counterparts to encourage elected officials to be making the same request. I mean, I was wondering whether, for example, if the county executives of Montgomery, Prince George's, and Baltimore were to write a letter saying we think it's important to get this extra equipment, does that help to, to move the ball or anything else that we can do? Because while I think we have a very strong argument on the merits, I'm not sure that the merits are going to win out without some extra.
However, the county executives that do such a thing are taking on the added budget of such a request. So,
well, not necessarily.
Oh, yes. No matter what, they'd be lucky if they get away with half. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it becomes another whole issue along that line. It's not just a simple lobbying kind of thing. It's tied to the budget, and at the moment, I think we want to really concentrate on those areas of our budget where we're hoping to get some supplemental help.
I would say if you're going to speak to anyone, it's the state legislature.
I was going to say, I think at least talking about our concern about how this is coming down, and in conjunction with other counties, I think would be super. But I think there needs to be, and I think the state legislators and the committees and chairmen of the committee involved, I agree with you. I think we need to make sure they understand that there's a deep concern. So, in fact, when we get nasty newspaper articles,
well, and the governor as well. I mean,
sure.
because
Well, and let me say, in terms of the meeting coming up, please, everybody, take the opportunity to talk to our colleagues in the other counties too. Let's find out, a little bit about what they're doing and not. I think Naheed and I have been to. We generally go together at the off-year meetings of these that take place, which are smaller, and have always taken the opportunity to sit with people in some of the other counties to really talk to them about and I'm sure especially you want to zero in on Prince George's and Baltimore, Howard, and the ones of substantial size that are going to be facing some of the similar issues. So it is a good networking opportunity. Anything else under under the voting system before we go to new business? Any new business? Future meetings? Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know. We did not publicly acknowledge at the meeting about our departing board member. Would this be an appropriate time to do that? Or, because I just wanted to say a few words, if that's okay.
Absolutely. This is the last board meeting of our tenure, and let me say to all my colleagues, right and left and right, how much I've enjoyed working with all of you. I know we've accomplished a lot, I think, and working, of course, with the staff, the senior staff, and all staff that we had an opportunity today to be with for lunch, but most especially the senior staff who we work closest with. This is a critical time that we're moving forward to, and unfortunately, we're going to be doing it without one of our own senior hands here, Denise Jeter, and I had expressed earlier how much I will miss Denise's hard work and always sage advice, but she will be hearing from us with calls of help, 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 and I hope we'll respond, and I hope we'll continue to see you, Denise.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yes, anyone else?
Yes, you've been a joy to work with.
Oh, aren't you kind? Thank you.
Since she's coming back, I'm not going to talk about you.
I was going to say, I just wanted to say that I've enjoyed working with Denise greatly, particularly on the budget committee and in general. Like is true with probably everybody on the board and lots of other people too. We haven't always agreed 100% of the time, but and Denise is very steadfast in her beliefs, as everybody knows. Once she makes up her mind, she's it takes a lot to convince her. But I think she's added a lot to the deliberations of the board, and I'll be missing you, but hopefully we'll stay in touch.
I would just like to say that it's been a joy to work with you, but the nicest part of it is that I made a long life friend with you, and we will miss you, but you have a new grandbaby girl. Okay, board of mothers. That's right, mothers. So you know what? You're not gonna miss us. Your time will be quite well invested, and just going goo goo gaga over your only grandchild, right?
Yes.
So congratulations to you, and we will miss you, and you're always welcome. To give us feedback and to come and to. But it's been such a pleasure. You're such a wonderful, great lady, and you always brought such a good amount of not just strategy, but just calmness and just equilibrium to these meetings. And that tone you set is been very much appreciated. And I'm personally going to miss you.
Thank you. I'm going to miss all of you, and it has been an honor to serve with you. And I know this is a critical time and you have your work cut out for you, but I know you're up to it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank you. Future meetings. Margie, we have it in front of us. There's nothing else we need to know, right?
No, at the when you're here on June 2 for the swearing in, I'll have information for you on your reservations and everything for the Mayo conference. So I'll have all of that for you on the June 2 meeting. Then, of course, the biennial, as we all know, 9th through 11th in Ocean City, and the June board meeting is on June 15th. Nothing else.
So it's a lot in June.
Heavy June.
Could you go through the June 2nd for me, please, in terms of are we to be here at 2, is that when the swearing in will take place?
Yes, either Barbara Michael-John or a deputy clerk will be here at 2 o'clock for the swearing in. And following the swearing in, we will have an executive function where Kevin and Margaret will go over certain items. And actually, at this point, I'll defer to Kevin in just a second. And once they go over items for the board, then we'll just do a final reminder about the Mayo meeting. But Kevin, Margaret, do you want to go into more detail about what is included in the orientation?
Well, you'll be getting a packet of information, but basically we'll do a brief overview of the bylaws, because shortly thereafter at the June meeting we will need to approve the bylaws, both all members, including
At
substitute.
that meeting?
No,
or?
no.
Later.
The meeting in mid-June, and we'll go over the Open Meetings Act sort of briefly, and then we have an election of officers, and that will occur at the June 2 meeting.
And then what I will cover is just briefly do a high-level description of the various elements of the State Board of Elections, the 3 major administrative functions that they serve, and how it relates to the local Board of Election.
And of course, we'll bring you up. We'll have an updated calendar by then.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll go through the calendar so that you could start, as you all know, blocking out dates around the election when you'll be needed for public demonstrations, early voting, deployment of equipment, picking up equipment, canvassing, so just so you can start getting some of that on your calendar so that you'll block that time out.
It's very helpful.
Okay.
And that's June 2nd is on a Tuesday, right?
Correct.
It's an unusual thing for us that we're not meeting on a Monday, we're meeting on a Tuesday.
The election law, if I'm correct, and Kevin will correct me, the board takes office the first Tuesday after the first Monday in June.
Oh, okay.
And
One of those first
Yeah, yeah,
and
like the
because
election.
Mayo is the following week,
Right,
we
no,
had
no,
to do
yeah,
it
no, that's-
right
that's-
then. We had to get everything
that's
I
taken
think
fine.
we're
care of.
doing it about as early as
Right, no, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't all forget and come the wrong day or whatever, so, okay.
Okay. So that's all we need to know for now, and then we'll get updates that day for what follows. Okay. There is no need for an executive session, and we didn't have one before, so there are no minutes.
I move the agenda.
Is there a second?
Go ahead.
Second.
Yours.
Of course.
Always second me.
All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Thank you all very, very much.